All right, and hello. So today we are joined by Crystal, also known as Moon, and she is a very advanced Chinese learner, and she sort of helps run a community that is Refold adjacent. They're sometimes referred to as the Heavenly Path, but that's a misnomer. What's the name of your community again?
It's called 看剧学汉语, so it means to watch a TV show to learn Chinese.
And yeah, they're essentially non refold immersion learners. And they've banded together and they have a great Notion and server, so check them out if you're learning Chinese. Now, Crystal, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Who are you? What your background is with language learning and with Chinese?
Yeah, so I'm Crystal. I'm a heritage speaker who's raised in the UK. I'm actually a Cantonese heritage speaker, to be precise. So during all of my sort of education life, so from primary school, also known as I think elementary school in the States, all the way to like high school, secondary school, I attended Cantonese Chinese school on a Saturday, every Saturday for many, many, many years, where they would teach standard written Chinese with Cantonese pronunciation, which is what students or people in Hong Kong would learn. And then after I stopped going after I went to university, I wasn't forced to go anymore by my parents. I kind of lost in touch with sort of the more formal side of the language, and I just spoke it with my parents, watched TV shows. Then, in 2020, early 2020, I stumbled upon a TV show called Untamed on Netflix, which is actually a fantasy drama based off a boy love, also known as danmei in Chinese, boy love web novel. And that sort of started the whole Chinese learning journey, really. And then from then on, I joined several communities and sort of made friends amongst the community, and then also found Refold members as well. I think some people might have seen me around on Reddit as well. That's kind of how it all started and how it all continued, really.
For sure. Yeah, and I definitely have seen your Reddit posts. You've got the occasional Reddit post that's very long, very well written about your journey.
Hmm.
So, what motivated you to get back into Chinese, especially after these, many years of doing Saturday morning Chinese school? Was it Dan Mei?
Yes, I mentioned earlier. So in the sort of like early 2020, I stumbled upon Netflix. I stumbled upon Untamed on Netflix. It's a fantasy drama based off a boy love known as danmei, web novel. I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, I didn't expect there to be any sort of mainland Chinese content on Netflix. I didn't even think that they would have anything on Netflix at all. For mostly Netflix were mostly American or British stuff, European stuff rather. There's some Korean stuff. So total shocked. Decided to let me go check this out. Didn't expect that. Then really really loved the drama, and I thought, oh, this is actually based off a web novel. Let me go and read the original. Wanted to see what the original was like compared to the drama. Then one thing led to another, and I ended up reading all the fan translations by the same author. So all three of the books that she wrote are all danmei, so these Chinese boy love web novels. Then I just kind of got into it. I was like, oh wow, this genre is very interesting. It's very intricate. It's very cool. Then I started picking up other fan translations of other web novels. But fan translations, always have this issue that sometimes the translator might drop the web novels, happens quite a lot, or they take a long time to translate it because at the end of the day, it's all free. Sometimes the quality can be massively vary. Some could be good, some could be not that great. And I believe there's quite a lot of them that are actually machine translated, and then they just edit it. Sometimes some things don't really make sense. There's a lot of mistakes, lots of misinterpretation. I just thought, I kind of want to see if I can learn Chinese to actually read these in the original format. So then in March 2022, I think a lot of us around the world found ourselves with a lot of extra spare time. I used to have to go into the office every day, and then suddenly found ourselves working at home every day, so I had 2-3 hours spare every evening. So then I thought, why not just give this a go? And then I decided to just start, and then here I am many years later, and I'm actually now reading these web novels in its original format.
Your journey is very similar to a lot of Japanese learners. You don't see this too much with people learning a language like Filipino or Thai, but you see it a lot with the Japanese learning community, where they're really into anime, and they go through the same sort of process of they watch something, then they start reading the translations or fan translations, and then they're like, well, this a web novel series is 8 books ahead if I just spoke Japanese. And they go through the same sort of process where they wind up learning the language to consume the content.
I think that is what's happening right now with the Danmei community in Chinese. I think there might even be more and more people moving forward actually learning Chinese because of Danmei. So when I first kind of discovered this genre, there was only fan translations. Now, years down the line now, I believe there is probably about 30, maybe even 40, maybe that may be a bit of an exaggeration. There's at least 30 that are officially translated into English or becoming officially translated. They're kind of in the process of translating them right now. And the translated version, the official translated version, are very, very expensive. Once the book becomes officially translated, usually the fan translation will be taken down. So then the only way you can read this would be to purchase the official translation. You're paying lots of money. Sometimes they might not be licensed in your country. You have to pay extra to have it shipped to you. It's very, very expensive, and it's a lot cheaper to read the original in a lot of times, because web novels in Chinese web novels, if you buy them on the original platform, they're very, very cheap. That might be the same as the Japanese. They might just feel like, oh, it's maybe cheaper or something to read it in Japanese, or be quicker as well, because you don't have to wait so long.
Right. I think the waiting is really what gets people. They don't want to wait a year or two to catch up to the series that they like. So with your learning, my understanding is that you did a lot of reading. Do you want to talk us through your process? People who are not familiar with you, they're not familiar with the Heavenly Path or your Reddit posts.
Yeah, so I actually don't read as much as you think I do, actually. So when I first started, it was kind of messy. I didn't really have a routine. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was all over the place. I tried things like Duolingo, I tried things like Hello Chinese, doing all sorts of different things. And eventually I got myself into a routine. And then my routine was mainly only really about 30 minutes of reading every day, because I really have like attention span for 30 minutes. Anything longer, I would feel very tired. It's very difficult to read in another language. So yeah, about 30 minutes every day. And then I would also spend maybe about 15, 20 minutes every day reviewing my own flashcard deck. And I'll do that usually in the morning before work. And then the rest of the time, when I have time, I would watch a lot of TV shows. I think I watch about maybe 3 to 4 hours a day of TV shows. And that's actually watching it with English subtitles. It took me a long time to eventually get to a stage where I could watch TV shows without English subtitles. Yes, it's not as much as you think. It's not as much reading as you think.
Yeah, I was under the impression that you read a whole bunch. So you read about 30 minutes a day, and then on top of that, you watched English subtitled dramas.
Basically, yeah. I think a lot of people perceive that I read a lot because I actually read a lot of very short web novels that are maybe only 10 chapters, 15 chapters. So when I list all the web novels I read, it seems like it is a lot, but actually it's not that much. Because I purposely picked the ones that are shorter, because I just find it difficult to read very long ones, so I purposely picked very short ones.
Yeah, so people are under the impression that you read a whole bunch, but really you read 30 minutes a day consistently, and then most importantly, you consumed a lot of TV.
Yes, that's right. I think I consume more TV than actual books. I think people perceive that I read a lot or I spend a lot of time reading is because I generally read books that are a little bit shorter. I find it very difficult to read books that are all web novels that are very, very long. So I tend to pick things, when I first started especially, I tended to pick things that may be less than 20 chapters or no, so 15 to 20 chapters in length, and then something that I could maybe finish in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So then it gives that impression that there's a lot of reading going on, but there isn't really that much. A lot of it is actually listening or just watching TV, really.
I'm glad that you touched on that. So, at least in the Refold side of the immersion learning community, there's this misconception that you need to spend 8 hours a day looking up words and reading very intensively to make any progress in a language like Japanese or Chinese. And you seem to have gotten to a very high level just through doing 30 minutes a day of reading on top of watching TV with subs.
hmm Yeah, I think I think the listening part of it is also another way to acquire words as well, because you're going to hear a lot of words being spoken to you. Sometimes a lot of the same words as well. I tend to watch a lot of very similar style drama. I have a sort of genre that I particularly like, so I would just watch kind of the same-ish things. You often find a lot of the same words being repeated over and over again, and that's just another form of kind of vocabulary acquisition, which can be used in reading as well, because I see them also used in books. So it's just another way, really.
Right. The Refold term for that would be a domain. And I think Dr. Stephen Krashen calls that narrow input, focusing on a genre or an author. There will be a lot of the same vocabulary that's used. If you only watch costume dramas set in a certain time period, a lot of that vocabulary will repeat.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I find, like, because I watch mostly like costume historical drama, it's the same things over and over again. So at first it will be very difficult because it's like a lot of new words, but the more you watch, the more it becomes kind of the same, and you find a lot of the plot lines become the same, so it gets easier and easier the more you watch, really.
Sure. And you mentioned that you did do flashcards, and that's interesting to me because I once saw someone in your community call Refold the Anki people. So I sort of had this misconception that you and your community did not do flashcards. So I'm curious, what sort of flashcards did you do? Were they paper, or were they Anki, or memorized, or what sort of flashcard study did you do?
So I didn't actually use Anki. I didn't even discover Anki till much, much later into my journey. So I actually used the paid flashcard add-on on Placo, so which is the Placo, for those that don't know, is the Chinese, it's like a dictionary app. It comes with load of features. It's perfect for Chinese, really. It's perfect for, like, the flashcard part of it is perfect. It's got audio, everything. So yeah, I just used that. So what I did was, during my 30 minutes of reading every day, I will pick out a couple of words that are new. Depends. Sometimes I might do 10 words, sometimes I might do 20. I usually don't really go over 20 because it can become overwhelming. And then after reading, I'll add those to my flashcard deck on Pleco. Then every single day, I'll review my flashcard deck. That was really it. Every single morning, I would do that once a day. And there are some people, I do know that within the community, there are some people who don't like flashcards, and people just don't like it. Like, I found it useful, but that's not the case for everyone. I know there are some people that did flashcards for a little while, but once they got themselves into immersion, they just didn't want to do flashcards anymore. So they would just either read or watch TV, and then that's just kind of natural vocabulary kind of review, really, because you're naturally reviewing the words as you're reading, as you're watching TV. So everyone's different, really.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement. I think that I usually, at least with Anki, recommend people do no more than 5 to 10 words a day, because it becomes very punishing. And, I think that the benefit drops off after a while. Whereas reading or watching or listening, just a whole bunch in very narrow domains, lets you have a lot of that same repetition of concepts and vocabulary, and it's a lot more fun.
Oh yeah,
You know,
definitely.
people, 9 out of 10 people would rather watch a costume drama than do flashcards.
Yeah, that would definitely be me. Like, to be very honest, like years later now, it's probably been what, almost 4 years of me learning Chinese now. I don't really do flashcards anymore. I still do. I still have it. I still occasionally add words to it, but I've kind of dropped off doing it every single day. Really, I'm not as diligent as I once was. It's just now because now it's just to the point where I'm just reading books and watching TV. Really. So there is a point I think that you do need to stop. I think, or there is a point where you can stop once it becomes not as valuable anymore. Because a lot of the new words that I don't know, they're so rare. They're very, very
They're
rare.
obscure.
Yeah, it's very hard to even learn them through flashcards because you might add them to your flashcard. You see it on your flashcard that one day, then you see it again 7 days later, 2 weeks later, or something like that. But you might not see it again in context for a very, very long time, and it just becomes it's just not that valuable anymore, really.
I can totally buy that. I call this the lignite example. So when I used to teach English, I had a student bring an article to me about lignite mining in Poland. And I don't work with minerals or rocks or coal or anything, so I had never seen the word lignite. And that was probably 5 years ago. And anyways, I learned from him that lignite is a type of low-quality brown coal. I think in the 5 years since I had that meeting, I have seen the word lignite in context one other time.
Wow. I mean, it's not
So
a
you
very
get
common
these,
word.
yeah, you get these diminishing returns for
Yeah.
sure. And it's really cool to me that you and your community are very into Chinese content, especially mainland Chinese content. One of the misconceptions I see in Refold, in the Refold community, is this idea that there is no good content in Chinese, and if there is, it doesn't come from China. There's this sort of misconception that there's nothing interesting to watch, and I think your community has sort of disproven that. There's a whole bunch of people who are into the danmei, the baihe, the costume dramas, and even the Chinese sort of manhua, sort of like webtoons. So there is a group of people out there who do like Chinese content.
I think everyone is just different. There's always going to be people who like certain things. Like a lot of people might even say, oh, trashy romance, who's going to watch that? But there's a massive number of people who love trashy romance, who love to watch these hours and hours of these people like looking at each other all day long and just going on dates. And some people like that. So it's good content is kind of, it depends on the person. Some people will find it good, some people would not like it. But yeah, for us, there is a lot of people who really like that type of content. And we just for us, we've just found a little kind of like little place we call home where we can talk to other people who also like the same type of content.
You were touching on the fact that there's something for everyone. And I totally agree with that, for sure. And one thing that I am a little envious of is I notice that certain people tend to gravitate towards certain types of content. And for example, this is just all anecdotal. A lot of guys are not really into the sort of cringy, trashy romance, but they tend to be very accessible. Whereas something like, the three-body problem, or the hard sci-fi, or epic high fantasy, there tends to be a lot of more niche vocab that you have to get under your belt to really start enjoying it. So I always tell people that trashy romance novels are rocket fuel for learning. because especially if they take place in, a modern city, there's not a whole bunch of obscure poetic language. There's not a whole bunch of these very domain-specific words. And it lets you get a lot of exposure to very comprehensible language very early
Yeah, that's
on.
very, very true, and that's even true even for Chinese learning as well. So when you mentioned that generally men don't like trashy romance, not trashy romance content, be it web novel or drama. I actually met someone on my Discord server who's male and actually loves trashy romance content. He actually mostly watched historical, so his thing was historical and trashy. And to be honest, he's probably one of the fastest learners I have known. There is no heritage. He's not a heritage speaker in Cantonese, Mandarin, nothing. He's just a European guy learning Chinese. And I think he managed to get himself to a stage where he can watch TV shows without any subtitles after about a year and a half of watching a lot of trashy TV, and like it's amazing. So that you're right. Watching or reading trashy content is the way to go. Usually, even for costume dramas and historical dramas, which is known to have a lot of these obscure sort of words that are not used in modern day, a lot of the more trashy stuff, because they're more comedy, a bit more about romance, they're not very serious. A lot of the times the language is a lot simpler. They don't read, it's not very poetic. Even in that type of context, they're not very poetic either. And usually, you get the plot lines that are very similar, a bit same. It's very predictable. It makes great learning content.
Yeah, having the shared tropes for sure. Sometimes people in the Refold community call that the fourth channel, which is sort of like knowing vaguely what's going to happen if you know the tropes or you know the story or stories like it. And I agree. I honestly think that trashy romance is one of the best things for getting good at a language
definitely.
very quickly.
Even for a lot of the web novels that our community recommend, a lot of the sort of simpler ones, they're mostly trashy romance. Because trashy modern day romance, because they're simple to read, there's not a lot of description, the language is very everyday, and the story is not that complicated. There might not be a lot of characters either, and it's just great, really.
Sure. One of my stronger languages outside of Spanish is Filipino, and I would say that the Filipino literary market is dominated by what they call pocketbooks, and they're now online. Wattpad is the biggest provider of these sort of books now, but they used to be sold for just a few pennies, essentially, at like gas stations. And they're full of tropes like, I'm dating the gangster mafia girlfriend and things like this, these sort of tropes. And I've been Stockholm syndromed by them. I never thought in my 30 plus years of being on this planet that I would be devouring books that talk about chiseled abs on fishermen in Provence. And I was reading one called Isla Verde, and a big city girl goes to Provence and she's ogling the fishermen in their washboard abs. And there were just so many descriptions of abs. I think the author really liked them. And I definitely got Stockholm syndrome to the point where I definitely enjoy them, but they would not have historically been my first pick. But if you are learning a language like Filipino or even Chinese, I think a lot of things are going to be
I agree.
romance.
I kind of fell in that sort of the same boat as well. So, the very popular trope in Chinese web novel is falling in love with the rich CEO, the common girl, the common girl or the common guy in some situations, falling in love with the rich CEO with lots and lots of money, living in a big house, cars. The most popular trope, and I even know someone who absolutely loves that trope. I'm not really a fan myself. Prior to learning Chinese, I never really read these kind of trashy romance novels, especially modern day stuff that have no fantasy elements. I never really read any of those kind of stuff, but since learning Chinese, I've read quite a few, and I do you really enjoy them? Because especially when you're learning a language that is so hard, being able to read something that is not that complicated, quite simple, generally entertaining, you can have a laugh as well at how trashy it is. It's very rewarding. And usually these are quite short as well because it's not that complicated. So you can kind of get through one of them in like a month, maybe even less than a month. It's just very, very rewarding.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot to be gained from reading or even watching trash TV. I'm not sure how big it is in China, but in some places, trash reality TV fills a similar niche where, you know, it shows the lives of rich housewives or something, and it shows their petty drama and the extravagance. And it's something that I would not watch in English, but has been a guilty pleasure for me in like Filipino,
Yeah,
for
I'm not
example.
sure if there is anything similar in the sort of Chinese entertainment industry, but variety shows. What I have found quite interesting, what I found is quite popular, is people they really like people living in the sort of farm, like sort of city people going to a farm, starting a little farmer there, you know, going work on the field. There's quite a few of those sort of variety shows that are kind of like that, and I got really into it. It's so great. It's just watching people doing farming stuff, really, like going to work on the field, watering some crops, you know, taking all the stuff and then cooking something with it. I don't know if that's kind of the sort of equivalent to it, but that's very, very popular as far as I can see in China. And that's sort of thing that I also really like to recommend people to watch as well, because it's very simple, really. It's just these people doing everyday things. It's great for language learning.
It can be very interesting for those of us raised in the West or in an otherwise sort of global north developed country to watch some of these things. One of my favorite channels, for example, in Portuguese is a YouTube channel, and he is José Lindo. He's from Mozambique, and he just shows daily life. You know, it shows him hunting jungle rats or loading electricity where he lives prepaid. So it shows him loading his prepaid electricity, and things like that are just fascinating to me because it's so different. So that makes it interesting. But also, sometimes I yearn for that. I yearn for like simple living country. Wouldn't it be nice to not have to be in meetings all day and, get up with the sun and go to bed with the sun? So I can totally see that. So when it comes to content, what would you recommend a new Chinese learner do? Because there is, unfortunately, this stereotype that Chinese content is just not good.
I think my current recommendation is this new sort of medium form that China is now kind of rolling out, and it's starting to become very popular. And it's known as, I think there might be different terms for it on the internet. Some people call it short drama, some people call it mini dramas. Essentially, they are a type of drama that is basically very short. Usually the episodes are under 15 minutes. Sometimes they might even be 5 minutes long. Very, very short. Almost like a TikTok video. And then the episodes are usually maybe the whole thing, maybe only about 24 episodes. So it's more like a little bit of a longer movie, altogether 2 to 3 hours long. They're the type of content that is so great for learners, because the story is much more simpler, because how much can you fit in 2 hours? And it's usually not a lot. There's not a lot of characters. There's only maybe the male lead, the female lead, maybe a side character here and there. So it's very easy to follow along because there's not that many of them. Because the stories are usually not that complicated, the language used is usually very, very simple as well. And those are just great. Like, you can watch them with subtitles if with English subtitles or your native language subtitles if you're not that familiar with Chinese, or if you're already quite good at it, then you can definitely watch those without subtitles because they're just so simple. And I think starting off with
that sounds similar to the Korean web dramas, is what they call them. where they've got these 5 to 15 minute episodes.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're mostly, as far as I know, they're mostly on the web. I think they even tried doing sort of more portrait versions of them. But the ones I watch are more landscape. They are more like a normal drama, just very very short. But I think there is definitely some that are portraits. So it's literally like watching lots of TikTok videos. But that makes sense. Not just TikTok videos that are not all connected, but all connected into one story. You just watch 5 minute clip, next 5 minute clip, and you just keep watching them.
I'm a big fan of that. I don't know. My attention span is not what it used to be. So I think getting 5 minutes of very dense language, like you would in a drama where there's a whole bunch of dialogue, is very useful. And it's easy to fit into your day as well. And I almost never use my computer or TV for content. I almost do all of my reading, all of my watching on my tablet. So I'm a huge fan of short form content. And I think that I could get behind 5 minute TikTok style.
I think you would like them. I
Sure.
really really love them, and I just think they're just really good from a language learning point of view. They are very good, but they are mostly trash. Quite a lot of them are these sort of trashy romance. But as we spoke about earlier, trashy romance are the best type of content for learners.
They really are so good. You sort of have to deprogram new language learners. They're like, I only want to read serious stuff like politics or philosophy. And that's fine. I think that a lot of people secretly like trashy content. They just feel guilty about it. There's this sort of stigma. And you sort of have to deprogram that stigma and say, look, watching, your harem of anime girls or watching a trashy romance, these things they're junk food. It's like eating, a burger and fries. It's not good for you, but it's very addicting. So it sort of in a way becomes good for your language learning. And that sort of stigma, you have to just deprogram people from it and get them to try it. And then once they do, they're like, yeah,
There
get
is
behind
nothing
this.
to be ashamed about at all. I think that might be why that so many Danmei learners that are just so successful, because we're not shameful. We don't care that people know that we read about boys and boys or girls and girls. We don't care. We just love it. So like we don't mind talking about it. We don't shy away from it. And also, in a way, we kind of become like more open-minded about it. We could become obsessed with it as well. That's kind of how we all end up being pretty successful. And there's a lot of Chinese Danmei fans who are now reading web novels at a very high level, and there aren't that many that have a heritage speaker. I think I might be one out of two. There might be two of us. The rest that I know don't have any heritage background, and there are some of them who, I think one I know probably started reading a web novel after 6 months of learning, just because she was so obsessed and she just really really wanted to read Danmei, so she'll read the trashiest thing out there. And now look at her. I think she just finished a historical one, and she's only been learning for about a year and a half, maybe not even that.
So what was your timeline when you the pandemic hit and you started getting into Chinese content and then taking up the mantle of being a Mandarin learner? How long did it take you doing your 15 minutes of flashcards and your 20 to 30 minutes of reading and then just binging shows? At what point did you feel comfortable actually tackling like a Danmei web novel?
I think so. If I remember, I read mostly like children's short stories when I first started, and then discovered some short children's book, read those. At that time, I didn't really know how to even look for Danmei, to be honest. So
Is that one of the things? I know that a lot of people in the HP community, the Heavenly Path community, are a fan of this story about like a fat bald.
Yes, yeah. I think that's I started. So I found it somewhere on a website. I think I found I think it was a pirated copy, and I was like, oh, what's this? And then let me just read it. Oh, it's not that difficult. it's also a little bit weird. But okay, but it's fine. I managed to read it. It's not that difficult. Let me just tell everyone about it, and now everyone's reading it because it's just it's a short novel, short children's novel. Yeah, just not that difficult to read, really. I think it may have been targeted for 6-year-olds, 6 to 7-year-olds, maybe. So yeah, simple,
Okay.
repeated language is what a lot of people found.
So you got into like short stories, kid stories, and then again, how long did it take for you to actually be able to tackle native content aimed at somebody who is like, let's say 16 to 30, sort of more young adult content?
I think maybe about 9 months of reading, maybe 6 to 9 months of reading. I can't really remember. I think it might have been more 9 months. 9 months of reading sort of these children contents that I decided to tackle my first Danmei. But bear in mind though, at that time I didn't know that many easier web novels. Since then, myself and other people have found many very short, very easy web novels that you could probably read a lot earlier than that. So that's why I think a lot of people in the sort of Danmei learning community have found themselves to be able to read a web novel after 6 months, because we've just found a lot more easier content. Whereas when I was learning, we didn't know of any. So it took a long time to get to, it took a little bit longer. Yeah. Now we're like, oh wow, there's a lot of easy Danmei content. There's loads now. I think we probably have about 15 that you can try.
Interesting. Yeah. So that really puts into perspective, Chinese has this reputation, warranted or not, as being incredibly difficult and incredibly boring in terms of content. And you and the Danmei community have sort of flipped that on its head. You've got people reading native content after 6 months of study. And not only are you reading native content, you're enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, it just goes back to the fact that we just love the content. Maybe some of it probably comes from having prior exposure of it as well, because there's a lot of translated Danmei out there. So a lot of people kind of got into this genre from reading translations, whether it's an official translation or fan translation. And then going back to what we said earlier, that they just don't want to wait or don't want to pay the extra money. It's just, actually, you know what? It's actually quicker and easier to learn Chinese. Then it's also cheaper as well than to pay. I think some of the official translation, I think it's for the whole series. I think we're looking around $150 now for the whole series. It's actually cheaper to just learn Chinese, which is what a lot of us found.
And beyond Danmei, your community is also full of people who enjoy other types of Chinese media, right? Like variety shows, maybe. What else beyond Danmei and web novels do you see a lot of successful learners in your community use for input?
TV shows definitely one. A lot of success in that. A lot of people who really like watching TV shows, who love binging these TV shows, have definitely found success in improving their listening, sometimes reading as well, because you're obviously learning the words, and most Chinese TV show will come with subtitles, so in a way you're sort of naturally reading the subtitles as you're watching. Audio drama is also another one that is becoming quite popular. So for those that don't know, audio drama is like, how do I describe it? It's like a TV show, but just the audio without the visuals. So they kind of make it, they make the sounds, and they use sound effects to represent things that are happening. Then there'll be obviously voice acting for all of the dialogues. It's almost like a very short version, almost like an easier version. Some people might say as to a audiobook. Like audiobook would have a lot of descriptions, a lot of kind of a wordy paragraphs, then some dialogue, and then more wordy paragraphs. But an audio drama takes all of that away. That's all replaced with sound effects, and you just have the sound effects and the dialogue and music as well in some case. And a lot of people have found lots and lots of success consuming that type of content in terms of listening, because technically you are forced to listening because there's no visual, you're just listening. they do all come with subtitles as well. So that's how people kind of get into it. They would read the subtitles. You can do some bit of hacking around on the browser to make a little pop-up dictionary appear on those subtitles. Some people listen, read the subtitles, look up words, and rinse and repeat. And then eventually, after lots and lots of hours of listening, they get really, really, really good at it.
For sure. And when it comes to web dramas, what do you usually find is available as a web drama? Are these horror? So, like, for example, in Filipino, there's this sort of audio drama culture, and a lot of it tends to be like myths and folklore / horror. I've not heard too many. There are a couple of like sort of slice of life or romance ones out there, but it's pretty varied. And I'm curious what the Chinese learning landscape is. Is it mostly like, romance type dramas, or is there something out there for people who might like sort of creepypastas or scary
Are we talking
stories or
sort of
fantasy?
web novel? Are we talking sort of TV dramas or like web
We're talking all like audio drama.
audio dramas, right? So in terms
Audio
of
dramas.
audio drama, it's super, super varied. So don't completely quote me on this. As far as I'm aware, I believe that the audio drama kind of became popular because of Danmei. Like, studios started to make adaptations of Dan-made web novels into audio drama, and it kind of picked up. So majority of what's available is usually Dan-made, but more and more, because it's becoming such a popular medium, more and more studios are adapting non-Dan-made content. There are some romance ones, there are non-romance ones, there is horror. There's actually everything. You can find absolutely anything, to be honest, because Dan-made is for Dan-made in particular. It's kind of like the only requirement for it to be a Dan-made is you just have to have 2 male characters who eventually become involved in a romantic relationship sometime during the story, whether that is in a historical setting, sci-fi setting, modern setting, fantasy. It could be anything. It could be crime, it could be absolutely anything. So then you find the same range in audio drama. So there is definitely something for everyone. Because it's getting so popular, there are non-Dan-mades being adapted as well, and I'm seeing some horror things. I've seen some sort of more crime stuff being adapted, some science fiction stuff being adapted as well. So it's everything, really.
That is very cool. And another sort of language I've seen in the Refold community that does have a sort of Danmei-esque following is Thai learners. There's quite a lot of Thai boys' love dramas out there that used to be quite popular. I know that in the Philippines, up until maybe a decade ago, it was very common to get Filipino dubbed Thai sort of boy love dramas in the Philippines because there was a local following for it. So, yeah, it's very interesting to see what's popular among different demographics and in different languages.
Yeah, I've heard
and
about the
different
popular
cultures.
Thai boy love content. I believe someone I know that was learning or wanted to learn Thai for the boy love content, but then eventually decided to learn Chinese instead because they preferred the sound of the language compared to Thai. So yeah, and then I think she also showed me that I think she follows one of the Discord community as well, and I think she said there's just almost equal number of like learners learning Thai for boy love content than it is Chinese. I would also imagine that Korean learners, maybe Japanese learners, there might be a community of them learning for Korean or Japanese boy love content. It's a pretty popular genre.
For sure. And when I was an English teacher teaching English as a second language to Chinese students, I noticed the popularity of also dating sim-esque video games were very popular among my older Chinese students, usually girls. So I imagine that if people are into dating sims as a genre of, storytelling or a video game or whatever you want to call it. I feel like there's a lot of options out there in
For the sort
Chinese.
of dating sim area, I'm not too sure because it's quite hard to access games like specifically mobile games made in China, because you usually have to have a Chinese ID or some kind of phone number to be able to access them. So I don't know about any of those really, but there has been a few that's been released recently to the global community. There's probably about, I think I can name maybe three that I know that have been released. Yeah, I can see it's become popular because I know that among this sort of dating sim community, the Western sort of dating sim community, they've become very, very popular. So I can imagine more and more of those coming out over the next couple of years.
Now, we are nearing the end of our time, but before we say goodbye, is there anything that you would like to talk about that I didn't have a chance to bring up relating to Chinese or the language learning community?
No, I don't really think so. I think that it's been good.
Okay. Well, Crystal, also known as Moon Online, thank you so much for coming on. And I'll make sure that in the description there is a link to your all's sort of content aggregation site. And is it
Yes,
okay
of
if I
course,
also link your
definitely.
Discord server? All right, cool. Well, guys, if you're into web novels, danmei, costume dramas, things like that, go check out The Heavenly Path and their community, and you'll meet a lot of like-minded
Great.
people. All right,
Thanks
and
for
Crystal,
having
thank you
me.
so much for coming on.
I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Refold podcast. If you're watching the live premiere, you're in luck. Right as it ends, we have an after party over on the Refold Central Discord server. Come join us by using refold.link/join and chat about the episode. If you enjoyed the podcast and would like to hear more, you can find older episodes to listen to on YouTube and Spotify. Let us know what you thought about the video by liking and leaving a comment below. Do you have suggestions for upcoming visitors or requests for particular topics? Please feel free to reach out to me on Discord at GeorgePig #5413 or via email at clayton@refold.la. Thank you all for watching and or listening, and I'll see you next week.